All right, you ready? All right, so here's what we're doing on the back of the Barracuda right now. So we've been working on setting up some rear suspension. We have to custom make this stuff because there wasn't the parts available that I wanted. This A-body Mopar 67 Barracuda, they just don't make a lot of parts for these cars. There are some parts available, some kits, you know, but I've been bit by those kits before, and I didn't want to take a chance on something. You know, one, they're a lot of money and they're not exactly what I wanted, so I didn't want to spend a bunch of money on something and end up hating it. So I'd rather do it the way I want it done. You know, even if time-wise or whatever it costs me more in the end, at least I know in the end that it's exactly the way I want it. It's engineered well, and I could potentially turn some of this stuff into my own products that I can sell to y'all if you got a Mopar. So what we're doing is we are doing a resto mod build on this car, trying to keep it as retro looking as possible, but with a little bit better technology. So we've updated the rear end to a 4.9-inch from GearFX driveline. We've eliminated the leaf springs, and we're gonna go with RideTech coilovers, adjustable coilovers, with a RideTech triangulated 4-link kit. So what we're keeping though is a stock-ish gas tank. We did have to massage it a little bit to clear the rear end and the springs, but for the most part I want to keep as much stock components as I can on this car so that it's easy to just, you know, duplicate this later maybe. You know, if another customer wants this, okay, cool, yeah, we already got it figured out. All we gotta do is get these parts, weld them in there, find a good body to start with, and then just do it. So if you take a look here, we've got to figure out, one of the challenges here is figuring out how to put springs on the back of this car so that they fit. So I've got the wheelbase is exactly where I want it. We've already mocked up the tire and everything so that it looks correct in the wheel well. So looking correct is of the utmost importance here at Hammer Fab. The stance, wheel and tire fitment, wheel and tire placement, backspace, all that has to be on point. That's why our stuff looks so good. And we go to extreme lengths to make that work, whatever it takes. Narrowing the rear end, modifying the gas tank to get the rear end to come back enough, whatever it takes, that's what we're gonna do. So right now we've got some placeholder, just struts, I guess you call them, I don't know what you call those, mock-up shocks in there, to basically, those are holding the rear end in place, and we can adjust these so that they're perfectly at the right dimension for ride height. But right now they're mounted to the original upper shock mounts. So this used to have leaf springs and the shocks went up there. Well, they're just mounted to the sheet metal structure of the floor, which isn't very strong. So with a shock absorber, you don't need it to be real strong. It just needs to be strong enough to resist the tension of the shock. But we want to actually suspend the weight of the vehicle off of this now. Instead of just a shock absorber, it's a shock and a spring. So we've got to beef that area up. So we're going to show you how we did that in SolidWorks on the computer. So what we got to do is we got to design a cross member that basically connects the inner frame rail all the way to the other inner frame rail, and it's going to plug weld to the floor that's weak, and that'll make that whole area stiff enough and strong enough to support the weight of the vehicle and mount the springs. So, but the other thing I want to do is the location of the original shocks is a little bit too far inboard for my liking, so the further out you can get the springs, the better, because it's going to give the car better stability when you're cornering. And so with the rear end mocked up, I took a third mock-up shock, which is also infinitely adjustable, and I set it to the same length as what we need the spring to be compressed at ride height. So if you see right now, it's about 2 inches shorter than the spring is, because the spring right now isn't compressed because there's no weight on it. So we can't fully use this to fully mock everything up because it's too long in the sprung condition. So this is the ride height length that we need. And so what we did was we tack welded another bolt up there. I don't know if you can see that in there. Let me show that. So we tack welded this other bolt It's just a 5/8 bolt to basically represent where the new stud is going to be. This will get a plate that goes all the way across here that welds into the car. But for right now, we just need something that we can hang this on like that so we don't have to hold it. And now down here, we swing this out and we can locate where the lower mounting point is going to be on our new bracket. So basically what we're going to do is design this new bracket that extends the shock mounting point out like that, about 5 inches from where it was originally. So, you know, you spread the spring width 10 inches, that's a lot of extra stability and less body roll side to side. So that's what we did there. We did that, and then we created this template. And then in the end, you can see kind of how the coilover is going to fit in there. So obviously it's too long right now, but that's how it's going to fit up in there. It's going to have about 1/4 of an inch of clearance to the axle housing. And we had to clearance the gas tank a little bit to fit the backside. But that's going to look really nice, and it's going to handle well. It's going to clear everything, and it also clears the wheel, just in case anybody's wondering. This has 11-inch wide wheels on it. These clear the wheels no problem. So let's go in on the computer, and I'll show you guys how we designed this in SolidWorks. All right, so we're going to open up SolidWorks here on the computer and show you guys how we design these parts. This is the pattern that we started with out on the Barracuda for the rear shock bracket, rear lower shock bracket. It's really rough. It's not perfect, doesn't need to be. It's just kind of getting us in the ballpark of what we want it to look like. And then this is the one that we ended up with. So you can see the dimensions are pretty close. You know, we did change the design a little bit. But basically what I did in this situation was I literally taped this on the screen like that. Literally take some tape. If it's small enough to fit on your screen, you can do this. I literally just taped this up here and then started drawing around it with the sketch features in SolidWorks. Okay, so if it's larger than that, there's other ways you can create custom parts. You may have to take a picture of it and then scale it. But this works really well if you can fit it on the screen. So anyways, we did that part and then dimensioned it. I'll show you here. So first what we do is we start out with a 2D sketch. So you can draw your shape, and then what you do is you start going in and putting dimensions in here. So like that's a dimension from there to there. This is your outer dimension, 5.5 inches. So, you know, you can use something a little more accurate than a tape measure if you want, but that's how I came up with that dimension. And it's not exactly what the cardboard is, but you know, I usually, once I start converting it to a digital drawing, I start kind of rounding up or rounding down the numbers, unless it's a number like a circle here that needs to be an exact size for what I'm wanting to do with it. So we start with that, and then you can see I edited the, so right now this is just a 2D sketch. You can see I edited the bottom a little bit because we decided we wanted to be able to put a hook in here for strapping the car in a trailer if we want to. And so that'll be a perfect spot to do that. So we just gave it a little bit of a unique design there so that it looks intentional and a little bit neater looking than just a straight line. So that's really the main purpose of this, is to just lighten it up, if you want to call it, or create a window, but also a place for a strap to hook on there. Okay, and then this is the shock mount. And then over here we just trim the sides of it so that it's not just a big rectangle, you know, try and minimize the shape as much as possible. So then the next thing we wanted to do was, you got to stiffen this a little bit, because if the weight of the car is on this alone, it's just going to bend this like this. So we have to create a gusset on the back side that comes up and attaches to the axle tube. And this will get welded to this, and that'll take all of the flex out of that part. So let's exit out of this sketch, and now you can see I've drawn two separate parts here. So I drew, this is one part and this is another part. And then once you draw them together, you can also see I've got a sketch here that represents the axle circle. And so basically, you know, if I were to hide this one, it just shows the other one. And so now you can see it has tabs on there. So I've created these as sheet metal parts, and so because I'm going to get them laser cut, if you do a sheet metal part, you can create these tabs and slots, and there's a feature, you just click a button to create the tabs and slots, you select which faces you want it to tab and slot, and then it automatically pops those shapes in there, and you don't have to go in there and manually draw all that stuff. So that's a pretty cool feature that SolidWorks has. So I hid the other one, so let's see, I don't know where it went now. There it is. Okay, so then what I did was I saved both of those as new parts, and then I'll show you, if you go to send, cut, send, we use them quite a bit for ordering parts. You know, here's this part that I've uploaded, and so first you have to, if you go back to SolidWorks, first thing you have to do is you have to create a drawing. Barracuda rear, hang on. All right, so for example, I saved both of these parts. So this is the main part after I saved it individually. Okay, so then from here, in order to put it into SolidWorks, you gotta give it some thickness first, and then you can go over here and you go make drawing from part. There is a drawing file with the same name as the model. Do you want to open this file? Yes. So this is the drawing that I've already created from that part. It's just all it is an outline drawing, and then there's a few things you have to go in to prepare it for laser cutting. So you got to turn the perimeter of it into a red. I don't think you have to do that for all laser machines, but Send Cut Send recommends doing that because the laser recognizes the red color. So the red is where it's going to cut. So we do that, and then we make the line as thin as possible, and then you have to make it 1:1 scale on your drawing. Okay, so then you save it as a drawing or DXF or a DWG, and then you upload that file to Send Cut Send. So I typically go with a DWG just because it's what I've always done, and it's easier for me to see the file on the computer. So yeah, you can preview it there. Actually, look, you can preview it, and then you can preview it in 3D on their website. So you can see what it's going to do when it cuts. I think it even shows you like where I don't know if that's accurate, like the cut marks and stuff, but that kind of shows you what it's going to do. And then if that looks good, then you hit add to cart. And then I've already selected what materials I wanted, but here, see, it's hot rolled, pickled, and oiled, HRPO, 1008 mild steel, 1/4 inch thick. But if you want to change that, you just click on that, and then you can select whatever material you want. You know, they got metals, composites, plastics, wood. So they got some cool stuff. They got carbon fiber, phenolic, cork, acrylic, ABS, Delrin, all kinds of stuff. Woods, they got Baltic birch, chipboard, hardboard, and then metals. So in this case, they've got aluminum, brass, copper, stainless steel, titanium. We just want steel, so we're going to select that, and then we just want mild steel. They do have all kinds of different steels. They've even got spring steel, chromoly, AR 500, all kinds of stuff. So we just want mild steel, and then you select the thickness that you want. We want 0.25, that's 1/4 inch, and then it gives you an instant price quote of what each part's going to cost. So if you just want one, it's $20.47 each. They do have a minimum. If you want 2 of them, the price goes down significantly, $13 a piece. You know, if you want 20 of them, price goes down in half, but then, you know, you're buying more parts. We don't need 20 of them, we just need 2 of them. And then you hit next, and then if you have bend lines on your drawing, it'll automatically give you an option to select your bend and create the angle of your bend, because they do offer bending. They offer countersinking, hardware insertion like PIMSerts, and thread tapping. So if my hole was the exact size within their parameters, so I'm not for sure about this, but I think if you want a hole tapped in a part from them, they're not going to tap a hole in this, for example. They're not going to tap a hole that's larger diameter than the thickness of the metal. So, because that's just kind of the standard rule of thumb, I think. But if this plate was 5/8 of, or if this plate was 3/4 of an inch thick, which they don't offer that thick, then it would probably prompt me and ask me if I want to tap that hole. Or if that hole was smaller than 1/4 inch, it might prompt me to tap that hole. But in this case, it's not asking me, it's not giving me that option because it's out of their parameters. So anyways, if you like that part, then you go next, and then you can select a final finish if that's an option. I'm just gonna have no finish. They're not even letting me deburr it. Deburring is unavailable for this material, tumbling is unavailable, anodizing is unavailable, but you can get it powder coated if you want, or plated. We don't want that. We just want raw metal so we can weld it. So then you hit save, and then that adds that to the cart. And so then you just select all your information and hit order. All right, so that's how you design a part, and then that's what the parts look like together. You know, we could put this on here. We could turn this into a, let's edit this sketch and make it not for construction, and then we can do an extruded boss base. Let's go mid-plane, and then let's go 10 inches. And now you've got an axle tube, so you can see what it's going to look like on your axle tube. You can visually inspect how it's going to fit up against the axle tube. So basically this will all get filled up with weld, and that will all get filled up with weld. And it'll be super beefy. And then the gusset will come down and grab that, so pretty cool. Love technology. I'm so glad that I've learned how to use it and implement it. It really speeds things up and it makes nicer parts. So I've already ordered these. They should be here in a couple of days, and then we'll mock those up and get them welded to the rear end.